Welcome into Scoops with Danny Mac on Fox 2. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Tonight it's all baseball on the show. The Cardinals wrapped up their series with the Boston Red Sox today at Fenway Park, and they'll begin a 4-game series with the Brewers tomorrow. The next homestand for the Cardinals will feature the first visit to Busch Stadium by the Chicago Cubs, and tickets at Cardinals.com for just $15. After that, we'll see the Miami Marlins. On the show this evening, Polo Ascencio will be part of the program. He's the first ever Spanish play-by-play broadcaster for the St. Louis Cardinals. From working with Bengie Molina to calling Yadi's final season, we'll talk it over with Polo. Jim Hayes has been covering the Redbirds for over 2 decades for Bally Sports, and we'll get together with Jim to talk over the start of this baseball season for the Cards and the final season for Yadi and Albert, and what it's been like seeing Ali Marmol in his first season as the skipper of the Redbirds. We start, though, with Ryan Fagan. He is the senior baseball writer for the Sporting News, covering Major League Baseball from the national perspective. Hey, Ryan, thanks for coming on the show and joining us here on Fox 2.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Well, let's start with the National League. As I mentioned, you cover the entire league. So let's start with the Cardinals in the National League. What have you thought so far?
They're in that mix. I think when you look at how the NL shapes out, there are, 7 or 8 teams that have legitimate chances of getting to the postseason and not just getting there, but making some noise. And I think the Cardinals are in that mix, right? They need things to go right. They need the right people to be healthy at the right time, but the goal is to get to October, and they're certainly positioned to be in October. I think when you look at the NL Central, it's not going to take as many wins, as it might in the NL West, where the Dodgers are, not quite as good as people thought they'd be, but they're still really good, and the Padres are playing really well. Or even the NL East, where the Mets are just playing great, and the Phillies and Braves all of a sudden can't lose. So, I think the Cardinals are in a good position where they are right now, considering the players that they've had gone, some of the guys they're getting back. I think they're kind of right where they want to be.
The question would be, can they compete with the Dodgers and the Mets of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at, if you're talking about October, when you're looking at a short series, if they've got, if they have Jack Flaherty healthy, if they have Adam Wainwright healthy, yeah, they absolutely can. They have enough bats in the lineup that can knock the ball over the fence. And when you get to October, that's important. Teams that advance are the ones that hit home runs at the right time. And I think the Cardinals have enough guys in that lineup, especially with the power we've seen from a kid like Gorman. They have the pieces to do that.
Well, we're just past Flag Day, as you know, so it's time to evaluate where teams and players are at around the league. Is Paul Goldschmidt the MVP right now of the National League?
I think it's either Paul Goldschmidt or Manny Machado. I think it's kind of a coin flip at this point. But you look at what Goldschmidt has done, and it really is, we saw in spring training, he looked a little different, right? Paul Goldschmidt is always great. The word that people use with him all the time is consistency. I think when you look at, the consecutive games, reaching base streak that he had, the hitting streak that he had, the power that he's had, he really is in the top 2, I think, in that conversation.
Ryan, I know you talk to people all over Major League Baseball. What's the general feeling around the game to see Yadi, Waino, Albert all back together here in St. Louis?
Well, I think there's a sense of nostalgia, which is weird to talk about nostalgia when you're actually talking about players who are still there, but there's no way to get around it. Obviously, Molina is still a very good backstop. He's still an asset defensively. We've seen what Albert Pujols can do against left-handed pitching, hitting over 350, doing a good job against lefties, and that's what they brought him here to do. So even though there is this sense of nostalgia, there's this sense of remembering back to the Cardinals teams that won championships while they were there, I think they will tell you they are just as focused on getting another one, and the pieces, the things that they bring to the plate, when you look at the Cardinals as a whole, I think they're important to accomplishing the goals that they want to reach.
About the American League, it seems like the Yankees are definitely the team to beat.
I wouldn't have said that heading into the season. I thought they were in the mix up near the top, but they really have been incredible. I think when you look at their rotation, you've got a guy like Jordan Montgomery, who is throwing as a starter an ERA under 3, and he's their 4th best starter. I mean, it really is crazy. Garrett Cole got lit up a little bit in his first start or two, but he's been fantastic since then. Nestor Cortez, you talk about the out-of-nowhere stories over the last couple of years. He's right at the top of that list. They've had Aaron Judge been healthy and producing like he really never has, which is saying something because he's been very good. Stanton's been in there. Gleyber Torres is coming back and hitting home runs in a way that he hasn't for a little while. So I think when you look at top to bottom, that lineup, that rotation, that bullpen, they really are. It's not hard to figure out why their record is so much better than everyone else's.
Okay, looking at next season, is there any doubt that new rules are coming to baseball?
I don't think so. I think that baseball has been pretty clear about what they are going to do, right? And I think a lot of these rules that we're talking about have been in place in the minors for quite some time. I don't think we're going to get to robot strike zones quite yet, but I think these are all things that baseball is working on, getting there to get the game to the level to the place that they want it to be in terms of entertainment, and competition.
How about the pitch clock? Is that the one will definitely come in next year?
Yeah, I think the pitch clock, that's one of those things we talk about, the rules that have been in place in the minors for a while, right? It's tough to go out there and say, okay, Justin Verlander, you suddenly have fewer seconds to pitch, right? But most of these guys, even guys who have been in the majors for 2 or 3, 4 years now, they were used to that, right? They came up learning with the pitch clock, and I think that's part of the reason baseball has been kind of playing the long game to get up there. But I think when you look at some of the results that we've seen in the minor leagues with the leagues that have the pitch clock, I think it will be a good thing, right? Because I love baseball. There is too much dead time. There just is, and it's not just the dead time between innings. There's, it's between pitches, and if we can cut down that on just a little bit, I think that it will be good for the sport.
Hey Ryan, thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, anytime, Dan.
Up next, Jim Hayes of the Cardinal broadcast will be my guest. That's next on Scoops with Danny Mac.
Scoops with Danny Mac on Fox 2 is brought to you by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert, Schnucks, Rottler Pest Control, Stratum Structural Systems, and Hair Saloon for Men.
Welcome back to the show on Fox 2. A reminder, you can read daily content with Bernie Miklas on scoopswithdannymac.com, podcast just about every day, so make sure you log on to the website. Hey, we're talking baseball tonight. Later in the show, it's a visit with Polo Ascencio, the Spanish play-by-play voice of the Cardinals. But now, let's say hello to my friend Jim Hayes of the Cardinal broadcast. Jim, thanks for hopping on the show.
Always a pleasure, Danny. You know that.
I did know that. Well, let's talk about the Cardinals. First-year manager Ali Marmol. What are your impressions of how things have gone for him so far in his first year?
I think he's great. To be honest, I like the way he runs the ball club. I think the players respect him. You could see that there's also an element of relaxation, and I don't mean that in an athletic sense where they're not trying. I think that they're a confident team that is relaxed, and they're not afraid to enjoy the moment when it's appropriate. And dealing with the media, he's been great. He's the kind of guy that, if there's something that he can't tell you about, which happens with covering a team, he'll say, why don't you get back to me later? He'll let you know that there's something that you might want to put in pregame or postgame. So he's been great.
Anything stand out about him that has really caught your attention? Anything that really just stands out and gets your attention?
Yeah, he makes time for everybody. I'm almost shocked by that. There's times where you don't see a manager for long stretches, and I get it. Ali has his share of meetings with the coaching staff, with players, discussions in his office. Certainly you see John Mozeliak or Michael Gersh in there from time to time. But he's also out on the field meeting with groups. He seems to enjoy the back and forth with the media, and he doesn't mind just popping by and having a little discussion about how things are going. And you see him everywhere, and I think to myself, does this guy have enough hours in the day?
For sure. So for Ali, he's in his first year. For others, they're in their last year. For Yadi and Albert, and this is it. Waino, maybe not. What's it been like for these three this year, you think?
It's kind of a treat, to be honest, because, you recognize the greatness of those three. Waino, don't say he's retiring, which I don't think he is. I think he's going to... he's pitching really well. He get to 200 wins, enhance a resume for the Hall of Fame, possibly. I don't think he's going anywhere. But for Yadi and for Albert, it's the last go-round. And I hear you talk about on the telecast that Albert is enjoying it. You could see that. And, I know Albert for a long time. And he doesn't like the fact that I'm a little pushy when I need something in terms of interview or a soundbite or something. So to be honest with you, he enjoys tormenting me, and I did a sit-down with him the other day, and he gave me a lot of time, and he'll always do it, but he has to punish me a little. And let me tell you, that last one-on-one I got with him, I earned it.
Okay, so you say torment. Tell a fan how Albert Pujols torments Jim Hayes.
Okay, so he'll say, Jim, I told you I'd do it at 4 o'clock. Why are you here? Well, Albert, it's, 6 minutes to go until we're supposed to, be in the dugout doing it. I just wanted to give you a reminder. Hey, Yachty, what is it with this guy? He's always, he doesn't think we're going to show up, or, he's always nervous we're not going to do the interview. He has to announce it to the whole clubhouse, and you have to go, thank you, Albert.
I love it. That's funny. It is fun watching him, though, and I think sometimes we forget the amazing accomplishments and lists in baseball that he's climbing up this year.
It's funny, because when I did interview him, I said, you were a guy who was always working out, always working. How is it different now when you're, 40? And he said, I can only do half the stuff. I still work. I just can't do as much because it takes a toll, and I want to be ready for the games. But as you point out on the games, too, there are at-bats where you see flashes of Albert at his best. It's hard to look at Albert and not understand that we're watching a once-in-a-generation player. I look at Yachty, in the day game, he's behind the plate. It's probably 120 on the field, and he's still Yachty, and he's up there in age, too. I appreciate what those guys have done with their careers, and I also appreciate that I've had the opportunity to watch them game after game after game, and also talk about that with my kid, who's a big baseball fan.
That's so well put. Now, Goldie might be the MVP, but if you asked him about his numbers individually, do you think he'd had any idea about those numbers?
No. And maybe it's cliche. I don't follow that stuff. A lot of players say that, but then they look at the stats and they're looking at social media. Goldie is not that way. People see him in the post game and he's not smiling, or there's times he looks stoic. He's not stoic. First off, he has fun. He interacts. He's not lead by example. He talks to everyone. I'm in the clubhouse. I see him interacting. He's talking to guys. He'll chirp guys, too. He's got a really good sense of humor. He hates talking about himself. And if you ask him the right question, you can get him going. And he smiles an awful lot when he's talking about those things. But if you say, hey, now your streak is 26 games, what do you think of that? He's going to be like, I don't. And that's going to be your answer. I don't think he feels he needs to send a life preserver out for a reporter who asks a question in that manner.
All right, final question, James. You've been covering the Cardinals for a long time. How good is this year's version of the Cardinals?
I think they're really good. I think the offense hasn't scratched the surface of what it can be. I think they'll settle in. They've added a lot of new pieces with these young guys. I think the offense will take off. We've seen it, just hasn't been consistent enough. And I think getting Jack Flaherty back is huge. I think once he's back, if he's healthy, which I think he will be, he can stabilize that rotation. I think this team could go on a run.
Hey, Jimmy, as always, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure.
Up next, the Spanish play-by-play voice of Cardinals baseball, and that's Polo Ascencio. And he's next on Scoops with Danny Mac.
Scoops with Danny Mac on Fox 2 is brought to you by Lordo's Diamonds, On the Run, STLTaxLawyer.com, Triad Bank, and Lou Fuse.
Welcome back to Scoops with Danny Mac on Fox 2. Now, late in the 2016 season, the Cardinals added Spanish broadcast for fans to enjoy on the radio. Behind the mic for those games, it has been Polo Ascencio. Let's talk it over with Polo. Hey, Polo, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Danny, thank you. Muchas gracias.
Hey, muchas gracias for appearing on the show. So what's it been like for you to be the first ever voice of the Spanish broadcast in Cardinals history?
I always say this is the dream that I never had. Not only being a big league announcer, but here in St. Louis, my wildest dreams that I never had. It's crazy. I get goosebumps thinking about it, and the opportunity that I have to bring baseball to the best fans in baseball. But not only that, to use my voice for something bigger than just baseball. And that's why I love it here. There's a lot of teams that I could go now or that at least have some interest on asking or knowing what I want to do. But I want to be here. I want to stay here because I feel that what we're doing here alongside Benji Molina and with the Cardinals and Spanish radio, it can create and can make a bigger impact in our community. And as we all know, nowadays we need that. We need voices that keep us together. And at least when it comes down to baseball and life, St. Louis, it was perfect for me, and I love it. I love it.
How about the response to your broadcast here locally and nationally, because you're heard everywhere?
And internationally because of the MLB app and all that. I always, in the fourth inning or so, I always use this phrase, ¿De dónde nos estás escuchando? Kind of like what they do at Busch Stadium, like, where are you from? Where are you from? So I'm like, hey, where are you guys listening from? And I'm not lying when I tell you that, I mean, you kind of believe what people tell you. And Germany, Spain, Alaska, Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba, Puerto Rico, of course, Mexico, St. Louis, through the app, and of course the market here in St. Louis with La Tremenda 880, it's great. And everywhere we go, everywhere I go, there's always somebody, hey, I recognize your voice. One of the craziest things happened, I was having lunch with our director at the Spanish booth, Selena Allen. I was having lunch close to the stadium, and we were just talking, and this lady next to me keeps looking, and you're a legend even if you don't want to say so, Danny. People see you, people hear you. Oh, that's the guy. You can tell right away. And she was like, are you the guy? I'm like, nah, it's not me. And Selena, yeah, he is. She's like, I've never seen your face, but your voice, I know it's you. So when people come up to you like that, and little kids, Latino kids come up to you and tell me, hey, I love what you're doing. I want to be what you are doing. I'm like, well, hopefully one day, but not anytime soon. So it's great. Believe me, it's great everywhere I go. And in my hometown of Tijuana, Mexico, there's a team of kids, goes from 4 years old all the way to adults. It's called Cardinals. And I've been involved with them, and I'm going to be even more involved with them because, again, it's not only about baseball, it's not only about the Cardinals, it's about a lot of things, and it makes it easier that their name is Cardinals. So we're doing things, and everywhere we go, everywhere I go, people know what I do, people know who I am on the radio, and then when they get to know me a little better, sometimes they like me, and sometimes they really like me.
I would imagine the players, they've got to love it because their families are in other countries and they have a chance to hear about their sons.
Yeah. Funny story, a couple weeks ago during the Albert Pujols Top Golf Tournament, Edmundo Sosa's wife came up to me, and we were talking about Edmundo. He came up to bat and about his wife and his beautiful daughter. And I mentioned on the air, you know what, I haven't seen Edmundo's daughter or wife around here lately, but hopefully we do. So at the event, she's like, I'm here. I'm like, what do you mean? But yeah, you said you wanted to see me. I'm like, oh, yes. So they're listening. Obviously, Yadi's mom, Gladys' mom, which happens to be Benji Molina's mom, my mom, of course, Giovanni Gallegos' mom. When she came last year to visit, I invited her to the booth. She came in, and when she saw me and Benji, she was like, oh my God, it's you guys. I'm like, no, it's you. It's Gio's mom and the daughter, her daughter, Gio's sister, their grandma, the families of the players have been great with us. And I hope we are doing justice to what their loved ones are doing here on the field, and we connect with them a little bit.
Finally, working with the Molinas, covering Yadi, and your partner in the booth is Benji. What's that been like?
It's crazy. Again, going from booing them, working and living in California, especially Benji with the Angels and the Giants, and with Yadi, he's one of those players that you love to hate. You love him to be in your team, but when he's against you, you want to boo him, you want to yell everything at him, and that's what it is. And my daughter, funny story, when I started doing this back in 2016 and 17, she went back on Twitter and she deleted every single tweet that she had something bad to say about the Cardinals, and especially Yadier Molina. Nowadays, when they see each other, they hug each other. It's been great. Yadi has put his arm around me and around Benji for the broadcast, to the point where he's like, now you're family. Now you're not only part of the Familia Cardinales, but you're also part of the Molina family. So it's been great. And thank you for this time, Danny, for everything you do. And everybody, all the broadcasters here in San Luis and with the Cardinals have reached out one way or the other. to make me feel home and feel welcome here. And that's why I say some people might try to make it interesting when they ask, and I know, your door has been knocked a couple of times. Hey, get over here, get over here. But talking to you, you said, hey, St. Louis is going to love you, and you're going to love it, and you're not going to want to move from here ever. So I'm at that point where I want to stay here. I want to stick around, and for as long as the Cardinals want me, I tell everybody, if you put a contract in front of me, and it makes sense, I'll stay around, and I have no reason why to look anywhere else. I love it here. I really do.
Hey, Polo, thanks. And you are a major part of the Cardinals family.
Hey, so now we're hermanos, right? We're brothers.
For Polo Ascencio, Jim Hayes, and Ryan Fagan of the Sporting News, I'm Dan McLaughlin. This has been Scoops with Danny Mac on Fox 2, and I'll see you next Sunday.